When the boys built that base, Taliban or the AAF forces in the valley, they were completely in shock. It was like a middle finger sticking out. And they realized once they could not knock off OP Restrepo, we had the upper hand. They started becoming afraid.
Get some, Thomas! Woo!
Hey, hit the bottom right of the village.
Get this!
Winner of the 2010 Grand Jury Prize at Sundance for Best Documentary, Restrepo tells the story of the 173rd Airborne 2nd Platoon as they spend a year in the Korengal Valley, the deadliest place in all Afghanistan. How deadly? By the end of 2007, when America's attention was largely focused on Iraq, nearly 70% of all the bombs dropped in Afghanistan landed in or around this valley. Filmmakers Sebastian Junger and Tim Hetherington spent about 5 months with 2nd Platoon over the course of their deployment to show the war from a soldier's perspective, the good, the bad, the scary, and the silly, without narration, political analysis, or outside experts. But does a movie about the controversial, longest-running war in American history need a political stance? Is one implied if it doesn't? Or is it enough for the filmmakers to act as journalists and let the audience make up their own minds? These are tough questions, so let's try to answer some. If the film has a main character, it's probably Captain Dan Kearney, who's tasked with finding a way to keep the Korengal base from being shot at every day by insurgents. His solution is to take 2nd Platoon out in the middle of the night to dig and build an outpost on a perch overlooking the base right where the insurgents have been firing from, naming it Outpost Restrepo after a beloved medic who's killed early in the deployment. That makes OP Restrepo a bullet magnet, a miserable and scary place with multiple firefights every day and attacks coming from all directions. But as we see during the film, the young men of 2nd Platoon have a complex relationship with violence. After all, it's what these guys signed up for, and the struggle between life and death, the incomparable adrenaline rush it creates, and the intense bonding forged by their willingness to die for each other, creates a kind of connection and camaraderie that simply can't be found outside a war zone. One soldier claims that he doesn't know how he'll go back to civilian life after the rush of war, and when the fighting dies down and weeks go by without action, the soldiers are left actually wishing to be shot at to have something to do and regain that high. It's during this downtime that we see the lighter side of a soldier's life, where they joke, wrestle, play video games, even dance with each other to pass the time and create a sense of intimacy. But the realities of war come soon enough, as the soldiers are sent on patrols where they know insurgents are watching their every move, and have to go into villages where it's impossible to know who to trust. And when the fighting comes in Restrepo, it's as scary as anything you've seen in any horror movie. The worst of it comes during an operation called Rock Avalanche, which finds 2nd Battalion pinned down out in the open and one of its best soldiers killed. While the film's sympathies are clearly with the soldiers, Restrepo doesn't shy away from the darker side of things. There's the flashes of bloodlust, and the intractable disconnect as Captain Kearney tries to explain to villagers how the US will help them, while telling them to just get over all the civilians who had been killed or arrested under his predecessor's command. The film also shows the aftermath of a bombing raid that kills innocent villagers, destroys homes, and wounds children. But, as someone who's against the war, everything I saw in the film begged one question. Why are we there? Nothing the soldiers did, no matter how brave, and nothing they sacrificed, including their lives, to me, did anything to defend American freedom or prevent a terrorist attack, which are supposedly our two main reasons for being there. We're not building a viable nation, we'll never eliminate the Taliban, nor are we solving the centuries-old ethnic and religious conflicts that are sure to flare into all-out civil war when we leave. Even the 2nd Platoon's goal of stabilizing the Korengal Valley so a road could be built never happens, with OP Restrepo eventually being abandoned at the cost of 50 American lives and untold millions in taxpayer dollars. And while Restrepo takes pains to avoid taking a political stance, I worry it continues America's unhealthy worship of soldiers, where support the troops no matter what easily becomes support for the war. Personally, I'm not sure it's possible to act nobly for a cause that isn't noble, but is at best foolhardy. Still, Restrepo is a powerful, gripping documentary that deserves to be seen and talked about. But what you talk about will have a lot to do with what you bring with you to the theater. I'm Jonathan Kim, and this is a ReThink Review.